Hello and welcome to this evening's episode of On the Record. My name is Vuyo Mvogo. Well, on tonight's show, he has recently become a towering figure in the politics of the ANC. Together with at least two other provincial chairpersons of the party, they have allegedly formed an informal structure loosely called the Premier League, which some say has become so powerful that soon no major decision will be possible without their consent. Well, Supra Obakeng Ramweletsi Mahumapilo, the ANC's Northwest Chairman and Premier of that province, is my guest. But first, a look at stories making headlines around the country. The ANC has urged the public spat between Finance Minister Pravin Gordhan and the Special Police Unit, the Hawks, to resolve their differences privately. Gordhan has been given until this afternoon to answer 27 questions related to an investigative unit that was established while he was as commissioner. Now, meanwhile, the ANC is confident of doing well in the coming local government elections, despite negative reports within its ranks.
A media briefing to share information on the local government issues and elections. But the current tension between Finance Minister and the Hawks took center stage, as journalists wanted direction from the ANC on the matter. The ANC has acknowledged that the reports are damaging.
As ANC will prefer that these matters must be ventilated in appropriate forums in government where they originated, not in the public domain. The presidency, as well as the cabinet, issued a statement about 2 weeks ago that the forum is in government to discuss these matters.
Meanwhile, Finance Minister has also responded to the latest reports that is expected to reply to the Hawks letter, where he has been requested to answer 27 questions on the so-called SARS rogue unit.
Moyane is not a minister. He's the equivalent of the head of an administration. So that's the first one. There's no equality between Moyane and a minister. Secondly, the president has said he's got a process that's dealing with this matter, so let's give it a bit of time. Why do you have to leak these things? If you want to talk about them, have a press conference like us, put all the facts on the table and talk about it. No need to leak in order to malign people.
On the alleged involvement of the Gupta family in influence of government and appointment of ministers, the party says the issue will be discussed at the NEC meeting this coming weekend.
The ANC can never be captured by anybody, unfortunately. Name dropping, of course, will always be the gospel of the day to give an impression that somebody has got proximity to the leadership of the ANC. It's difficult to capture the ANC. It's quite a huge organization.
As the ANC prepares for the local government elections, it is concerned with an increase in the number of service delivery protests. The ruling party says, though it respects the right to protest, they should not be used to undermine the elected government.
On the face of it is service delivery, when in fact it's orchestrated and communities have been mobilized to undermine a sitting government.
The NEC is also expected to deal with dissatisfaction over the appointments of some councillor candidates which contribute to sporadic violent protests. Montlengeni Dipoko, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Well, Finance Minister Pravin Gordhan says investors are concerned about the lack of growth in the country. He was giving feedback on his trip to WHO international investors and what plans are in place to lift it. He said South Africans have to stop talking and start acting to respond to the ongoing economic crisis.
Pravin Gordhan says international investors are watching South Africa keenly. Issues raised by them included the risks to the fiscus and the balance sheets of state-owned enterprises, among others. He says that it's only South Africans who can ignite confidence in the country.
We as South Africans, Labour, government and business, have to take co-responsibility for our own economy. We've got to use the resources we have in order to generate confidence amongst our own investors, let alone anybody else.
The minister says that South Africa has lost credibility on the global stage and will have to follow up talk with concrete action.
We need to be aware of South Africans, as South Africans, that we need to provide very concrete evidence over the next few months that we are not just talking, that we are not just delivering new plans and new proposals. It's time for collective action, concrete action, and demonstrable action, which the world can say, yes, we believe these guys.
Gordon just wanted to talk about the economy and the trip, but the questions about the Guptas and state capture came thick and fast. Asked if he knew about the Deputy Finance Minister SABC Jonas being offered the role of Finance Minister before he was reappointed, he said he was not in a position to answer. Nompemelo Siziba, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Well, the family of Chris Hani remains split on meeting Janusz Walus, the man who assassinated the former SACP leader in April 1993. While Hani's widow, Dimpo, is refusing to meet him, she is supporting one of her daughters who wants to have a sit-down with her father's killer. Dimpo, who was among the ANC and SACP members who marched to the Constitutional Court today following the ruling ordering the Justice Minister to release Walus on parole.
Lindiwe Hani was only 12 when her father was shot dead.
I didn't realize that my father was the Chris Hani until after he died.
And for the past 23 years, she's wanted to meet her father's killers, Clive Darby Lewis and Janusz Walus, the man who pulled the trigger. And following the High Court ruling that Walus would be released on parole, she's penned a letter to the Polish triggerman.
If we did not react now...
Last week, Thursday's ruling has enraged the ANC-led alliance, but their responses are at odds.
In the eventuality that a decision is effected, because we're a constitutional and a state, the alternative is that he must actually be deported. But over and above that, nobody will guarantee his safety.
We find the statement of the ANC better responsible, if not reckless, to ask for deportation of this man, because this man, in essence, we are saying he must run away with the truth, and we want to hear the truth.
The marchers led by the ANC's Ekurhuleni region are concerned that the High Court ruling violates the principle of the separation of powers. They also want the Constitutional Court to review that ruling, albeit no formal appeal application was made.
That means
indications are that the Justice Department will challenge the High Court ruling.
We may explore other legal avenues other than applying for leave to appeal to another court, which until I've spoken to my legal advisors, I would not at this stage to be able to give a firm indication on.
The minister has less than 2 weeks to lodge an appeal. Aldrin Simpier, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Well, earlier, Aldrin Simpier spoke to Dimpo Hani at the march.
When the judge delivered that judgment, what went through your mind?
You know, she didn't deliver the judgment. All she did was to read the summary of the judgment. And, I was not surprised, not at all. I expected that judgment because already the first day, she had already told me to move on. So the judgment that the minister is given 4 days didn't come as a surprise at all.
And being told to move on, especially as a widow who has lost someone, it must be a difficult thing to hear somebody tell you that.
I was very angry. I'll tell you why. We have the Holocaust. I've never heard that judge say the Holocaust victims should move on. We have 9/11. I have never had the same judge say the Americans, victims of 9/11 should move on. But she had the audacity to tell me to move on. That is why I called her a racist based on that. She has not addressed the Holocaust. The people who were affected in the Holocaust, it was the most painful thing. It's similar to what I went through. But then in my case, because I'm a black woman, it's a black man who is dead, she tells me to move on. It was insulting, to be honest. I found it very insulting.
Would you like to have an opportunity to sit down with Walus?
I don't want to speak to Walus. I'll tell you why. Walus, as we all know, had a list of our leaders who, according to the court records, and Walus and Debbie Louise themselves, they were going to be assassinated. On that list, there was Joe Slovo's name, there was Madiba's name, and many of our other leaders. So I have nothing to say to Walus, except to say, Walus, tell us who helped you compile the list, who helped you plan to assassinate my husband. I don't want his apology. I don't want to meet him. As far as I'm concerned, all I want is the truth, nothing else.
Madimbo, I don't know if you'd be able to confirm. I saw reports yesterday in the Sunday papers indicating that your daughter had written a letter to him that she also wants to know what really happened.
Lindiwe, my youngest daughter, for the last 20 years, has always wanted to meet Debbie Lewis and Walus. And I do understand where she's coming from. She was only 12 and her father was assassinated. Comrades saying Walus should leave when he gets parole. She feels very strong that she needs to speak to Walus and even that other old man who we are told is dying. He's still very much alive, by the way, to find out what actually happened. She's not going to go there like, hi uncle, how are you? She wants to know the truth like me, like the whole country. And she has our support.
And just finally, the Minister of Correctional Services as well as Justice and Constitutional Development, Minister Masuta, has indicated that in all likelihood he would be appealing this ruling. Is this something that you support?
I support the minister 100%. I really want him to appeal the judgment because the judgment is unfair.
Tempoane speaking from the heart, speaking to Aldrin Sampier. Well, the acceleration of land redistribution is the only long-term solution to simmering racial tension in the country. Well, that's the view of the Speaker of the National Assembly, Baleka Mbete. She was addressing the Human Rights Commission's 20-year anniversary conference in Midrand here in Johannesburg.
A high-powered, high-profile turnout for the Human Rights Commission's 20th anniversary. The Commission's second decade of existence comes at a time when the country has been rocked by racial turmoil. 2015 ended on a sour note with several high-profile racist posts on social media grabbing international headlines. This year has also seen a slew of anti-racism marches and other similar events. National Assembly Speaker Baleka Mbete says while the scourge of racism is a global problem, institutions like the Human Rights Commission have a critical role to play in calming simmering racial tensions.
Our history and the experiences of other countries show that unity and social cohesion are necessary to meet social and economic objectives.
Mbete says accelerating land reform is the only sustainable solution.
We must insist that our economic growth path de-racializes the economy and makes a fundamental break with ownership patterns of the past. This must also include the acceleration of the allocation of land.
Government has also praised the Commission for its sterling work in defense of ordinary people's human rights.
In addition to the South African Human Rights Commission, we have the Equality Court that serves as a mechanism in which disputes relating to violation of these rights can be ventilated, whilst the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development provides administrative support to this court.
Former President Thabo Mbeki is billed to address the conference's final day on Tuesday. Dumala Mushaudi, SABC News, Midrand.
Well, time to take a quick ad break. When we return, Supra Maumapilo joins me here in the studio. Don't go away.
Our eyes are the window to the beautiful wonders of the world, but blindness enhances other senses. Technology has made living with blindness easy.
If you look on the side here, it's got like grooves in there.
Yeah.
So the first one after when it comes together will be a 20 Rand, 50 Rand. And if I slide this in, I can see according to the grooves, it's now on 50 Rand.
To Steve Kekana, blindness was never a hindrance, but a blessing.
You got to know that you are the child of the universe, being blind, and you've got the right to be here.
Join your host, Dr. Sello Mutawun, every Saturday from 9 a.m.
It's February 2016, and the fees have not fallen.
Some other students are struggling, they don't have money to even pay the rent outside. They're struggling with food and they don't have a place to stay.
I have lost hope in NSFAS. I'm now applying for jobs at funeral parlors to watch like dead bodies to finish my studies.
The race to replace Uganda's President Yoweri Museveni after 30 years in power is coming to an end.
Voting him out and letting him hand over power peacefully to another president would be the biggest sign of Uganda's democratic maturity.
Welcome back. You're watching On the Record. Well, he has recently become a towering figure in the politics of the ANC. Together with a couple of other provincial chairpersons of the governing party, they have allegedly formed an informal structure loosely referred to as the Premier League, which some say has become so powerful that soon no major decision will be possible without their consent. Well, Supra Ubakeng Ramwelezi Mahumapilo, the ANC's Northwest Chairman and Premier of that province, is my guest. Welcome, sir, and thank you very much for joining us.
Oh, thank you very much, Voyo. And good evening to your viewers.
Well, let me start by, let's talk about this weekend's events. A meeting that was supposed to take important decisions of the organization ended up people fighting and there was chaos. Rubber bullets. What happened?
Well, firstly, before I go there, I'm not a towering figure. I don't know how do you describe me like a towering figure. I'm just a member of the African National Congress who branches of the ANC decided to elect as a provincial chairperson. The ANC has taught us to be humble, so I try my best to be as humble as possible. So I don't know whether I fit that description of being a towering
We'll talk
figure.
about just how humble you think you are. But let's go back to the events of the weekend.
Well, as you know, the constitution of the ANC prescribes that provincial executive committees must hold provincial general councils at least once a year. So we were having our first provincial general council over the weekend in Madikwe, in the Moses Kotane sub-region, as prescribed by the Constitution. We had about 1,100 delegates representing branch secretaries, branch chairpersons, the alliance partners, all of them were there, SABC, COSATU, SANCO, the ANC Youth League, Women's League, the Veterans League, members of parliament, our councillors from all the municipalities, the traditional leaders were there, and the Provincial General Council went very, very well. It was a one-day Provincial General Council. Speeches were presented, there were resolutions taken. We adopted the declaration. What do we refer to as some kind of a commotion, where people who decided to invite themselves, who were not invited, then those things we are told happen outside between themselves and the police. And the police say to us, all those people, the whole day were at taverns in the local area, and in the afternoon around 3 o'clock they approached the venue. So the police had to find a way of helping them to go back home.
With rubber bullets and stun grenades?
Well, I was not part of the operation, so I wouldn't know what the police were doing. I'm sure they were just making sure that they enforce the law.
But were you surprised that there were such people?
No, I'm not surprised. In the province, there is a small group that requires attention at all times of the national office, but they also enjoy publicity through the media. So when they see television and they see newspapers, something goes to their heads. And they always mobilize some people to always come to some events of the ANC. But over the last 2 years, 2.5 years, it has gone down drastically. That's why our provincial conference last year went very well, uncontested, for the first time in the history of the province. But also, I think it's understandable that because the temperatures politically are going higher because of the local government elections nominations, so there will be a few people who will not be happy with all the processes, and instead of following the ANC procedures laid down in the Constitution and the guidelines of the nominations, they become creative. And unfortunately, in the course of them doing that, they either break the law or they break the Constitution of the ANC.
But did things really go well 2 years ago, or did you guys put concerted efforts in really managing the situation to ensure that the sort of scenes that the people which you say you didn't see, that the people who are outside, including our journalists, saw do not happen again? Was it not because you showed leadership? You went to people that were seen to be your adversaries, sat down with them, and actually said it was important for the ANC to come out of that meeting united, and for the kind of skirmishes that were seen at the weekend not to happen?
Several things that we did. We intensified necessary political education with all the structures, branches, sub-regions, regions, provincial executive committee, the leagues of the African National Congress, the alliance partners, and we introduced a program in the province called Reconciliation, Healing and Renewal, that comrades must do what I normally refer to as necessary political do-nothing process. So conversation started among cadres of the movement, and rationale began to creep in. But the second thing that we did was to go all out to engage comrades as the leadership. You'll remember that in the news here, you used to talk about the former provincial secretary of the ANC who managed affairs of the ANC towards 2012 Mangaung conference in a manner that compromised the ANC. We had to act on him, but later he showed remorse, and many other comrades are coming forward to show remorse. So we began to converge as cadres of the movement, and all of us then agreed that we must make sure that we preserve a much better organization in the context of rebranding, repositioning, and renewing the People's Province of Bokone-Bophirima. So by and large, when you go to the province, it's very stable. The communities are happy with the work that we are doing.
Well, there are people who say it is precisely because you stopped doing the things that you did 2 years ago that the Northwest ANC is finding itself in a bit of a crisis right now. That where before you saw the need for that do-nothing with people that were seen to be your adversaries, where before you saw the need for unity in that province so that the ANC can grow and do all the things that it is supposed to do. Right now you are running roughshod over everybody's interests, and basically you've become a law unto yourself. You are a bully and you are a dictator.
That's not true. It's an exaggeration and sensation which is not going to achieve anything. Vuyo, every Monday, without fail, we start at 8 o'clock in the morning. We go all over the sub-regions in the province. We meet with comrades, we meet with members of the ANC, we meet with supporters. We also meet with anybody who wants to see the leadership of the ANC in the province. We also go all out deliberately to meet with comrades who are seen not to be in favor or in support of the current leadership. Just last week on Thursday, I had a 3-hour meeting with one comrade who for the last 4 years or so has been aggrieved. And when he left the meeting, she said she's happy. So we are not perfect, but you try. You can only make mistakes in life because you do something, because you try. If you don't try, if you don't do anything, you'll not make mistakes. And mistakes are the best lessons from which we must learn for us to move forward in life. So that's how we try in the province.
What are some of the mistakes you are prepared to admit to? over the past couple of years, in the 2 years that you've been the chair?
I think we must exercise much more patience in engaging with the comrades, because you see...
So you haven't been patient with your
No,
comrades.
we've been patient. We need more of patience, I think, going forward. Because the branches of the ANC will say, but for how long are you going to be patient, Chairman? For how long? People disrupt meetings. Some people beat up people in meetings, and so on. You take them to the disciplinary process of the ANC. They do the same thing after 6 months or 12 months, and so on. But as the leadership, I think we must increase the level of mastering the art of managing necessary political contradictions. And one of the necessary ingredients is patience of leadership. So we shouldn't be relying on emotions sometimes. The second thing which I think we need to do is to allow many other. We do that, but I think we must increase the number of other comrades that we allow to bring more suggestions on how we can tackle some of the challenges that we are facing as the province. But thirdly, maybe over and above the structures of the organization, because we have to work through the structures of the organization, we should be intensifying what we had adopted in the province, which is called the festivals of ideas, where you call everybody, not only those who are in the structures, but call everybody to engage you on any matter, and you don't focus on credentials. You just call people and then you engage for 3 to 5 hours. Maybe those things will contribute towards making people realize that we are one, and the long-term strategic objective of building a united, democratic, non-racial and non-sexist South Africa is the same.
Well, if you acknowledge, the need for space to be opened and perhaps for more robust engagement, is that not an admission of your part that actually what some people have been saying, or the criticisms that they have leveled against you, including that you are a dictator, there is perhaps truth in it? It's just that perhaps you don't want to open yourself up, so that these people can sort of, get weaponry to attack you with.
By the way, I'm saying we engage, but maybe we must intensify it. You see, in the life of the African National Congress, you will continue to engage until you go to your grave. It's a road that is perpetually under construction for you. You can't arrive to say you are at point A, now you are at point B, you have arrived. No, it doesn't work like that. Remember, we pursue struggle and the strengthening of the organization under conditions neither of our choice nor making. So at all times the conditions will change. How I engage today cannot be the same as how I will engage next week, next month, because conditions of struggle are changing. So as the leadership, we need to always adjust and readjust as we move forward, and continue to be humble, no matter what people say and so on, but also always stay focused on the long-term strategic objective, because if you are a leader and you lose focus on the long-term strategic objective, you are going to be digressed.
Mr. Mamapilo, we're going to take a quick ad break. When we return, this conversation continues. Don't go away.
A very good afternoon. You're watching the Midday Report.
Lunchtime news amplified.
But for now, this is what they call home. Their hope to shift to a higher ground seems to be against the tide.
Midday Report provides you with more than just news stories.
I just want Port Elizabeth to know that they own a world-class theatre.
Good afternoon. You're with the news at 1 in the headlines.
Very good afternoon to you. This is News Live. I'm Natasha Thorpe. Let's take a quick look at what's coming up in your headlines.
Good afternoon and welcome to A View from the House.
For all things news, tune in to Midday Report weekdays at 12 noon, only on the SABC News channel.
The deepening hunger crisis in Malawi is threatening the survival of children.
And also it is the life-threatening part of malnutrition.
Malawi is facing its worst food crisis in 9 years.
Mugabe is the world's oldest sitting head of state, ahead of Queen Elizabeth of Britain.
The veteran leader seeks to temporarily forget his party's problems and instead focus on his legacy.
But he shows no sign of slowing down or stepping down from power after 36 years in office.
Welcome back. You're watching On the Record, and my guest this evening is the Premier of the Northwest, who is also the chairperson of the party in that part of our country. Mr. Maumapelo, I want us to talk about this notion or idea or concept or whatever it's called of a Premier League. We know that there is no structure of the ANC called the Premier League.
And it will never be.
But I think you understand where people are coming from.
Yeah.
What is your understanding of what are they referring to when they say you and a few other comrades of yours who are also provincial chairpersons, you form the Premier League? What is your understanding?
My understanding is that it's a creation of some sections of the media. But those sections of the media, they carry a message of some people who are hibernating within the ranks of the African National Congress, who are not courageous enough to express their views within the structures of the organization, but also who had some agenda which was defeated. The agenda was very simple. The agenda was take over the ANC Women's League, take over the ANC Youth League. When you have taken them over, make sure that you link them to some forces, both internally and outside, and then they must begin to attack the African National Congress. But to attack the National Congress, for you to do it successfully, you do it via President Jacob Zuma. That was the agenda.
Whose agenda was this?
These forces within the African National Congress who are working with, I won't mention the names, because as a leadership we have got the responsibility to keep matters of the organization confidential. But there are we know how they've been meeting, how they are coordinated, and so on. You can see now the concerted efforts.
Sounds like conspiracy theory to me.
It's not a conspiracy theory. I mean, we've got the facts. So we are discussing them within the ANC. But our solution to it is very simple. It's neither to accept or deny all this brouhaha about the Premier League and so on. The solution is very simple. It's about building the strong structures of the ANC which are able to defend the ANC at all times, that understand the long-term strategic objective of the ANC and the need at all times to take our people along so that our people are not confused here in South Africa. So we are very resolute in making sure that that agenda does not succeed.
So you then decided, as provincial chairpersons, who also happen to be premiers in your respective provinces, to come together and defend the ANC against these conspirators?
No, Rule 5 of the Constitution of the ANC says that it is the responsibility of every member of the African National Congress to defend the African National Congress, to build its image. So we are just implementing the Constitution of the African National Congress, not as chairpersons, but we are leading the 9 provinces as the African National Congress, minus half of the Western Cape. So we are working together to make sure that we defend the ANC and we build a much, much better organization.
So do you meet like at regular intervals?
No, we don't meet on a regular basis. Branches of the ANC are expected to meet on a monthly basis. The BCs must meet on a fortnightly basis. The PCs meet on a monthly basis also. As chairpersons of the ANC, the 8 chairpersons, plus the Western Cape, which is the 9, we do talk to one another. We call one another, we email one another, we meet at the NEC, We share notes on challenges that are facing various provinces. We share experiences on how we deal with some of the issues. I was having a meeting, for instance, which was supposed to take place on Friday with Paul Mashatile to discuss how we can manage issues of the economy between Gauteng and our province of Bokonebophirima, because the economies are overlapping, and people who come from our province come here. His business people do business in our province. So we talk across provinces.
Did you have more agreements than disagreements?
We've got more agreements as all the chairpersons of the ANC.
I'm talking about your meeting with Mr. Mashatile now.
No, it couldn't take place. It's going to take place
it didn't
on
take
Thursday.
place.
Yeah.
But there's a lot you differ on, I'm sure.
No, we agree, almost 99%.
Really?
Yeah, we agree a lot.
Even on the conspiracy thing. Does he subscribe to this view that there were people who wanted to capture the ANC, who wanted to use the Women's League and the Youth League, doing this via an attack on President Jacob Zuma?
Vuyo, you know, everybody knows that there are forces globally and here in South Africa that have never been happy that the ANC is in power. Those forces are there. And these forces will continue to be there. These forces will continue to connive and develop some methods of working and derailing the African National Congress. That's why the ANC says in the strategy and tactics document and in the resolutions of Mangaung, it calls on cadres of the movement to always be vigilant at all times. So if you are a leader of the ANC and you don't know that there are forces at all times that work 24/7 to derail the ANC, to annihilate the African National Congress, to liquidate the African National Congress, to set comrades against one another, to make sure that the ANC gets divided, then we must be looking at this leader with another eye. Because if you are a leader, you must know that you have to defend the ANC against these forces at all times. These forces are there and they work 24/7, as I've said.
But you do know that there are people prepared to offer an alternative narrative to yours. A narrative that says you and like-minded people, right, are out to ensure that you basically wield as much power as you can, right, so that you can then be able to take very critical decisions, so that you rally everyone. In other words, anyone who thinks that they can influence the ANC in any direction cannot do that without you.
The African...
And by so doing, you're making it possible for those that want to capture the ANC to have a gate or a go-to place.
The African National Congress is a democratic organization. That's why we pursue the National Democratic Revolution. We seek to achieve the revolution through democratic ways. Now, if you are a democratic organization, it means every time you go to conference, you allow members, you allow structures to talk to one another, to lobby issues among themselves, who they want to elect, and they do that as part of democracy in the organization. So if you are a leader of the organization and you are a member of the organization and you don't master the art of making sure that you work with the ground, with the structures of the organization, and you humble yourself in the structures of the organization, you don't become arrogant. You don't do things which are outside the bounds of the constitution of the ANC. If you remain principled, the structures of the ANC will see that he is trying. Maybe we must elect him into the structures of the ANC. And the more you work harder, the more they will work with you to make sure that you build this glorious movement of our people. Those who will continue to fail to be elected in the structures of the organization as part of democracy, and they don't want to live with the democratic outcomes of the structures of the organization, they will forever lament like that. I call them perpetual grievance activists, because they, from one conference to another, they are always having grievances. They don't focus on building the organization and making sure that the African National Congress is capable enough to respond to the challenges of building a united, democratic, non-racial, and non-sexist South Africa.
Well, there are people who look at how you carry yourself, the way you walk, right? And actually see the arrogance that you're saying ANC leaders shouldn't be. There are people who listen to the things that you say, like the conversation we're having now. Yeah. I wonder how many people can be able to sit there and have this kind of conversation and speak the way you are speaking. And they point to those things and say, you see, they are allowed to speak whatever they want to speak, to say whatever they want to say, because they are safe. And that is why you're speaking the way you do.
Yeah. So what do you do? I mean, in life, if it's my style to speak the way I'm speaking, I can't change. I can't change my style, but like I'm saying, in what you do practically, people must see humbleness. And it doesn't mean that tomorrow you may not stumble. So you'll stumble, but the membership and the supporters of the ANC must see that he's trying to correct his deeds after stumbling. As through the eye of the needle of the ANC says, others will stumble, others will fall. And you know what Nelson Mandela says? Do not judge me by how many times I fall, but on how many times I'm able to rise every time I fall. So we learn from the leadership of the ANC who have got character, like Nelson Mandela and many other leaders who came before us as leaders in the African National Congress. The most important thing is to try and unite the people at all times. It is not easy. Not everybody will agree with you. Not everybody will agree with your approach, with your methods, with your style, but you must make sure that you appeal to all members of the organization in how you carry yourself.
But you're not appealing to all members of the ANC, like the members who were responsible or who did what they did at the weekend. So back to the question I asked you earlier, like right at the beginning, have you stumbled? And are you prepared to say, there I messed up, or I really did something wrong, or with the benefit of hindsight, I could have done this much differently from the way I did?
We are not a homogeneous organization for you. No, we are not like that. African National Congress. We are a very dynamic organization. We don't only allow, but we promote and encourage robustness in the African National Congress. We ensure that as many members of the ANC as possible are able to openly raise whatever matters that they want to raise. You know, over the weekend at the Provincial General Council, one member approached me and said, but for how long are you going to be so soft? As a leader from the Youth League, from the student movement, you have always been this soft leader. And when you listen to others, they say, no, you appear to be an arrogant leader. That's why I'm saying we are not a homogeneous organization. What is key for you as a leader is to listen to everybody and make a choice on the type of leader you want to be. Whether you get criticized, you must accept the criticism. When people say you must improve on how you conduct yourself, be seen to be improving on how you conduct yourself. You say I must talk about stumbling. Yes, I may have stumbled in life. And I think one of the weaknesses that one should be working on, when I give people a task and they don't perform the task, I take over and implement the task myself. Sometimes that may come across as being a bit dictatorial and arrogant towards some members of the ANC. But when work is given, work must be done. When the ANC says, go and make sure that you do door to door every Monday from 2 o'clock up to 5 o'clock, and some people do what I normally refer to as loafer escapism. We can't allow that to happen in the African National Congress. And we must approach such members and say, yeah, you are not working according to the way the ANC says we must work. And if it means we must be hard on them, we must be hard on them, because we are not in the African National Congress to be friends. We are here in the ANC to implement the National Democratic Revolution, to make sure that we implement a program of a better life for our people.
Speaking of friends, are the Guptas your friends?
No, I'm not a friend to the Guptas, but I want to defend the Guptas.
Why?
One, nobody has come up with a small shred of evidence on a piece of law that they've broken. I'm still waiting for people to come up with that shred of evidence. What we know about them in the province is that they've opened a mine there in Klerksdorp. They're employing many people. They are contributing to the growth of the economy of the province. They implement their social labor plan in the province. When we want to engage them anytime, they are more available than the other mines in the province that we struggle to find. When we say to them, correct 1, 2, 3 things, they correct them. When you say to them that, can you help those communities that are struggling with this and that, they help, until the noisemakers come up with a shred of evidence which they must take to the law enforcement agencies.
But why don't you
We are a
encourage the
law-abiding
communities? I mean,
country.
those there are workers who are accusing them of racism, for example. Why don't you encourage them to actually go to the law enforcement agencies instead of you actually, speaking on their behalf, of rising to their protection?
No, those people have raised those
Because you are their
matters.
leader, you are everyone's leader. Then.
Yes, of course. You are a leader of everybody. Whether you are a capitalist or you are not, you are leaders of everybody. There are people who have complained about some practices of racism in as far as the Gupta business is concerned in the province. They've come to us. We have gone to the Gupta family and we have spoken with them on this matter, and they've said, we want those people to bring evidence of racism. And nobody has come up with evidence in as far as racism is concerned. And I normally say to people, Voyo, we must not forget that in the Freedom Charter, we say South Africa belongs to all who live in black and white. In the ANC strategy and tactics, we say our liberation is for blacks in general and Africans in particular. The Indian community constitute the blacks in general that we seek to liberate here in South Africa. Now, if we are going to isolate one Indian family,
They are being
and we
isolated
target
because they
them,
are Indian.
I think so.
Really?
This is what the people who wear some red things said, that they don't want part of the food that they prepare. And so they said so themselves with their own mouths and so on. Now, that is racism to the extreme, and that's actually being xenophobic. And we must actually be challenging such people. I'm just saying to South Africans, I think we are unfairly targeting this family. Unfairly we are targeting this family. How many people are mining? How much percentage of the South African economy do they control?
I don't know. I think
less than 0.1%.
But it's not things like landing at Waterkloof that rub people up the wrong way. Is it not all the reports we are seeing now of like jobs being offered that people have a problem with? It could well, you may well be correct, but I'm saying those lingering perceptions which they don't seem to have made an effort to actually debunk if they are myths.
But we must congratulate our government. If people land at Waterkloof in the manner in which people complain about the Gupta family, what did the government do? They set up an investigation. There was a report. There were recommendations. The government acted swiftly and drastically on the recommendations. So instead of saying, President Zuma and your government, congratulations for acting swiftly, investigating and acting, we cause a brouhaha in the country because we want to paint the country badly, but we also want to make sure that the legacy of President Jacob Zuma is rubbished. I don't think we must allow that to happen to any president in this particular country. Secondly, they go and hold a wedding at Sun City. It's a venue like anybody can book,
I don't think anyone argues.
if you want to have a wedding at Sun City, you are allowed
Got
to
the
do
money
that.
to pay? Yeah.
If you have the money to pay, you do that. So that's why in the province we are saying that because Sun City is now on the world map because of that wedding, we are going to use it to promote and encourage tourism in the province as part of growing the economy. It's an opportunity that we must see if we are entrepreneurs.
But it's not correct to lend there illegally.
Yes, but the government has acted on the lending.
Have they ever sort of said anything to you about that?
With the Gupta family?
Yeah, you've had opportunities to mix with them. Huh?
No, I asked them about lending at...
What did they say?
They said they followed all the processes and procedures that they explained publicly. Remember, they explained publicly. And that is not them who arranged the lending. It was part of the Indian government, the delegation that came there. But I think South Africans must close that chapter and move on, Vuyo. There are many other problems that we should be dealing with. Farmers, some of them are ill-treating our farm workers. Why are we not saying there must be weekly statistics on how many farm workers are being ill-treated by white Afrikaner farm owners here in South Africa, and what do we do about them, because they are flouting the constitution of the Republic. We want to build a non-racial South Africa. They are doing something else. We must commend white farmers who are working with us to do some work, some track, as we say in the province. There's drought. Let's talk about the drought and how we overcome the challenges of drought and how they are affecting the economy and so on. And leave all this negativity, you know. About President Zuma, for instance, you know that is for the first time that we have a government spending over R1 trillion on infrastructure development. Why are we not focusing on those things? It's for the first time in the Republic of South Africa where you have a president who goes throughout the country to meet anybody who wants to say anything without any hindrances, you know. Why don't we embrace those positive things? For the first time, you have a president, when he stumbles, he's able to say to the people of South Africa, I think here I've stumbled, and I think as a nation, let's hold each other by the hand and move forward. That's humbleness, and that's being honest to the people and being principled. You don't find such people in South Africa.
Oh, sorry, no, I was asking which incident, what are you referring to when you say you have a president who has said, I've stumbled? And
the president openly said, it's not me who said the project at my house must be carried out, for instance, but I take responsibility for it, and I'll follow the recommendations of the report of the public protector. Is that not being honest with the people of South Africa? And I think we should be embracing actually what the president is saying, and saying to the young people and everybody else, we must actually learn from President Jacob Zuma to be humble.
Wearing your hat as ANC chair again, we're going to local government elections. Are you confident with places like Tlokwe in mind? Are you confident that ANC is going to do very well?
The first thing that I can assure you without any ambiguity is that in the People's Province of Bokone-Bophirima, we're going to win all the 22 municipalities. That's a point of departure. Secondly, we are going to make sure that we increase our percentage in as far as the majority is concerned. We are flat on the ground. We are implementing a program called Setsukutsane. We go to all our rural areas, the townships, the small dorpies. We engage our people led by Tona Khul, with members of the Executive Council, our structures of the organization. But also we go to people and acknowledge where we have made mistakes, where we have stumbled as a government, but we also say to them, we have delivered. When you look at houses, we look at electricity, you look at roads, we look at education, we look at health issues and so on. We have delivered a lot as a province, but there's still more to be done, and we open up to our people. Currently, we're on a massive, massive program of making sure that we develop what we call village development plans as part of the National Development Plan. For the first time in the province, we'll be having every village, the 767 villages, having a village development plan.
Will you be able to see all of that through? Because remember, there were reports at the weekend about you going to be redeployed to Parliament as the chief whip.
Yeah, the rumor started around Friday in the social media. But let me just take you back about the rumors about myself. You know that...
no, this one, is it true?
I'll come to it. I just want to show you how it builds up.
Very
on the 26th, I was reported to have been involved in an accident and that I was dead. So Litualos phoned me and they were shocked to hear that I'm still alive. It was not dead, so people who cooked a story. The second story they cooked was that I got a heart attack on the 6th and that I'm dead.
And here you
also,
are.
yeah, man, you can see, alive and kicking. They are now spreading another story that I'm going to be redeployed to Parliament to replace Stone Sizani. That's another story that is being cooked in the media by people who want to cause sensation.
Have you not been asked?
No, there's nobody.
No one?
Nobody.
Not a phone call?
Not a phone call, not a meeting, not a letter, not a Twitter, not an email, nothing, not a whispering.
Maumapelo, thank you very much.
God be with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, the Premier of the Northwest and the ANC chairperson there, Supra Maumapelo. Well, that's all we have time for tonight. From me, Vuyo Mvogo, and the rest of the crew, it's a good night.